Right, we're talking about professional skills now. Okay, so here's another way to look at you guys. Look, there isn't another room with a group like this in. This is it. This is it. There isn't another room down the corridor where there's a similar group of people doing something. This is it. Right? Your activity, your outputs and your future careers are part of the deliverables from our project. You could think of the enhancement of your career as one of the key deliverables to this project. I think of it like that. Regardless of what technology or what papers are written or what ideas are investigated, what concepts are proved, regardless, your future success of your careers is part of what we're trying to deliver. Right? In order to do that, obviously, we want you to take the best out of here and then go on and have super successful careers in industry, in academia, government policy, in a convent, wherever you're going. I want it to be successful, right? Okay? So, for that reason, Project Next Job actually started yesterday, right? And you need to treat it as a project. And you need to put proper time into it. I would say everybody should be spending between 10% and 20% of their time. 20% is a day a week. That's a lot, right? 10% is an afternoon a week. That sounds okay. Between 10 and 20% of your time you should be putting into skilling up. Not skilling up your maths, not skilling up your computer science, but skilling up so that you're ready for the next job. And by skilling up, I also mean networking. Getting ready for the next job. PDRAs sometimes come and see to me and I'm mentoring them. And I said, what are you doing? And they go, well, I'm doing networks with Renault upstairs. They say, yeah, networks, definitely networks. And I said to them, look, there's a great networks group at Imperial. Well, there's a great networks group down at QMU. There is, we know. I say, why don't you just get on the train and go to their network centre? Your aim is not to understand the seminar. Your aim is to know the name of everybody in the team. You can enjoy the seminar. And when they say, who are you? You say, I'm Pete. So what are you doing here? So well, I just come to see how you guys roll. So what are you working on? Oh yeah, I know what I'm working on. Get my on this one. What are you interested in? I know I'm interested. Right? Okay. And I said, now when you tell your PR, Jeff, you say, Jeff, I'm ever so excited, I'm going down to UCL's network group. Jeff's going to say, no, don't go to the network group because we're going to the Snowbird conference and we need to get the paper ready and there isn't time to go to them. You don't have time for that. And then go, okay, Jeff, and then take a day off sick.
I'll see right through it.
Oh yeah. I've taken that option away from you. The reason is that we've all got jobs, and so we're not really aligned, are we? But if I was, your backer, your parents or your partner or your kids, I'd kind of say, well, would be quite. Anyway, I told this to one guy who's one of Down Farmer's students. I said, look, just go. And Down won't like it, but just go. And so he went. And about a month later, he knocked on my door and he came in. I forgot who it was. He said, oh, I did what you said. I said, what did you do? He said, I went to the UCL networks group. They have a seminar every Wednesday. I went down to one. I said, what happened? He said, well, it was just like you said. They said, who are you? I said, oh, I work for Down Farmer in Oxford. And, what are you working on? He said, oh, I'm working on this. And what are you interested in? I said, yeah. And then you start, they say, oh, well, Harry's working on that. Barbara, she's working on something. Barbara, come and talk to this guy. Don't know that. It starts to happen in the tea room. And I said, well, what happened? He said, well, they liked what I was saying, so they've asked me to come and give a seminar next year. I'm going to give one of the seminars. So this is home run. Because now, when they have a job at UCL and you apply for it, your CV is going to go to the top of the pile because they know you, you're off sensible, you give it a nice talk, blah, 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 blah. Networking is super important. If you spend all your time being super successful writing papers then maybe that's not sufficient. Maybe, you need to get out and about and see the culture in other universities, the culture in other research groups, what they're doing, get to know the names of the people there. It's completely okay to say to, the leader of the networks group in the university, so, have you got any jobs coming up? So, well, we're asking to have a couple of new hires, but it's, well, yeah, actually, there's a couple of things coming up. This might be suitable. It's completely okay to ask. Everybody needs a job, right? So networking super, super important. And I would set yourselves the challenge. Go to other universities in our hub first. It's best to make mistakes with people you know. Then when you've done that, go to some events organised by the other hubs. Right? There'll be people like us. There's a room of people like us. We can be friends with them. You don't have to fight them until the next grants are let. So that's okay. Right? And then when you've done that, go anywhere else you like, to a local university. I always say to people, go to a university that's going to take you 90 minutes to get there on the train from Oxford Station. Right? You go there, enjoy the seminar, cup of tea. Remember, you're not there to understand the seminar, you're there to know the names of all of the people in the team. And it's completely okay if we're talking in the team to say, look, this has been great, but I just want to meet some more people before they all start to disappear. Is that okay? You go, yeah, sure. And then you went to the next person. Hi, okay. You got you work here. You'd like to talk about yourself. So, yeah, we work here. Yeah, we hate it. But it's much easier than you think. No, we as mathematicians aren't the sort of people who normally do this, right? Because it makes us cringe inside and we don't want to do it. Okay, so the bit of fun is to watch yourself doing it, and then on the way home, when you're on the train on the way home, just debrief yourself. Say, when I met that chap, that went really badly, didn't it? He kept talking about some incident with John Ockenden years ago, and it had spoiled his view of Oxford and it didn't work. We'd shut up about it, and think to yourself, how could I have avoided that? How could I have managed that conversation better? So, what are you working on? Why are you in this group? You're part of this research group. So, I'm running the UKRI National Centre for. And they tell you, it's quite interesting. Is that very big? Ask some questions. The power of questions. Open questions. Open questions, not closed questions. Right. That's networking. You've got to put proper time into this, remember? So professional skills includes networking, and this should be 10% of your week, every week. Because, if you're here for 2 years or 3 years, actually, when it gets to, 8 months to go, you really want to be applying to a load of things, and you need a network and address book and things like that. I'm part of many networks, and so I could, help, and your co-Is or your line managers can help too. They've all got networks. But actually, you need to build your own network, and that needs to start. Okay, that's networking. Anybody got any questions about networking before I go on to some other skills? Yes, Jared.
It's not a question, it's a statement. When you go and you do this networking, it might feel like nothing happened. You came home. And then it might be that 5 years later, you apply for a grant. And your proposal lands on someone's desk. You don't know it, you'll never know. And they go, oh yeah, I remember this thing.
Yeah.
This was this weird guy who showed up to the summer. They seem real nice. This is our first grant proposal. Sounds interesting. Oh, and by the way, they cited some of our stuff that they knew about because they came here. We should give them a grant.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of
benefits, aren't there?
that you'll never be aware of.
Yeah.
But they're happening.
You have to manage your own network and your own persona within that network. Don't hide behind your job. Don't hide behind your university. Right? You need that sentence pitch. You need that. What do you do? What are you interested in? Open the question. Don't close it. I'm interested in lots of things. Okay. Qualify your time hard. Okay. Don't do things for the sake of it. right? So this is super important. You can spend your time doing loads of things. Supervising undergraduate projects comes to mind. You can qualify your time, but actually this bit I'm talking about, this is a secret of success I'm giving. You can't be successful if you just do those diligent things. I'll tick the box for KE. I'll tick the box for supervising undergraduate projects. I'll tick the box for looking after an MSc certificate. I'll tick the box for this. I'll tick the box for this. You're going to need a job. You're going to need your network. You're going to have experiences that you can talk about when things went well and when things went badly. Okay. Plan, act, debrief. I once went on a course run by some American military people. It's fantastic. Basically, the result of a 2 hours work was to think, plan, act, debrief. Plan everything out. Don't leave things to chance. When I go to see companies, even at my great age, I still ring them up and say, what's the dress code? What are you guys? And they say, I can come in. Well, I just wear anything. Other people say, no, we tend to wear suits, except on Friday, just on Friday. Try to mirror what their culture is. Because you don't want anything to get between you and your message now. Right? Right, so plan. What are you going to say? You've got the things in your back pocket. What are you interested in? What's it like working with Jeff? Oh, nice. You're ready. Right? Act, do it. Watch yourself doing it as a kind of toe curling project. What's hard? What's easy? Debrief on the way home. What did I do bad? How could I have done that better for next time? Plan, act, debrief.
Sorry, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is a realistic expectation that we should have in terms of collaboration with stakeholders? Because myself, I don't have any active or ever had any collaboration with stakeholders.
Yeah.
Should we hate to have one? Is it a relevant thing to have?
No, I think you should have an expectation that at some point in your time here, part of this hub, you should at least be sitting in front of those people and do some of the second guessing stuff I was thinking about. Try and see the world from their shoes. Try and stand in their shoes and see what this looks like for them to get their view of our research and to what we're doing. I think it would be great if everybody did that. I don't think you should have expectations of going on a home run and setting up a massive collaboration project and things like that. I don't think that's at all. In fact, they might come to see us with specific questions or specific interests. They've got expectations. They're going to some of them turn up at the annual conference, and they'll have their own expectations and things like that. But I think what I'm saying to you is when you should have an expectation that you'll at least be exposed to a non-academic view of AI in your research. That would be good. So you can see yourself as others see you. And you can understand a little bit about their motivations. Is it the unknown unknowns they're worried about? Are they open innovative? Or have they got more specific and short-term things? Remember the TRL thing where they need us to do stuff at low TRL because they can't justify that themselves to their own shareholders, right? But we justify it to government. We get it done. So the public money it's really got to be in that level. So it's good to say, if you were working with us, what would their expectations be? Right? But I think for us, for all of you, actually, you should get in front of some of the non-academics. And if you get a chance to explain your work informally or formally in a sort of a 10-minute talk or something like that, remember, you don't have to close every question. Just give them a flavour of the excitement and the progress and the aspirations that we have. It's okay to aspire to things. It's okay to want things, isn't it? Okay, leadership. This is under the heading of some professional skills beyond the networking. So I'm just going to talk about leadership. This book's ostensibly about leadership, but there's lots of other things in it. Leadership's funny because the research councils have all woken up to that. They now have future leadership fellowships, to say. But it's amazing when you interview candidates for those sorts of fellowships or any other sort of fellowship, and you ask them about leadership, how they just segue that into talking about more of what their research is. But I didn't ask you about research. I asked you about how will you develop as a leader? And I thought I wanted leadership's a really good question. So we might aspire to lead research activities, to lead a group or a lab or a team, whatever we want to call it. And there are three ways of leadership, right? Up, sideways, and down. So let's start with down first, leading down. So you've got a group and you've got some people who work for you. So you can tell them what to do if you want to. That's called leading with authority, really. Or you can tell your PhD student or your master student what you think they should be doing. You kind of expect them to do it. Okay, so the trick is to be telling them in a way that still makes them feel good and is creative and gets the best ideas and those sorts of things. That's all in there, so I'm not going to do that again. So leading down is obvious, right? Leading sideways. I love leading sideways. And what this is that there are people like us in other universities in the United Kingdom. Right? Maybe some of them will feel about our topics the same way I feel. So if I could reach out to them and say, yeah, I'm doing this thing, don't you feel this thing? Yeah. So why don't we get, 2 or 3 of us together and do, just have a chat about it. Zoom, cheap, right? Why don't we, explore things and try and lead sideways. So find your opposite numbers in different universities, maybe outside the hub, maybe inside the hub, maybe outside the country. Doesn't matter. Right? Try and build some character and then try and lead that. Say, well, let's have a meeting. I'll try and get some money for some little face-to-face meeting to do something. What we're trying to do is to build a little club that might turn into things. Common research interests, common applications, might roll into a grant application, something like that. So leading sideways is sort of easy, but it's sort of obvious. It takes a bit of time, obviously. But it starts off by just reaching out to people in your network. Remember the network you've all got there, right? Say, I feel like this. Do you feel like that? Why don't let's do something together? And leading upwards. Okay, this is a sort of extension of leading sideways. So by leading upwards, I mean creating teams or events or activities which are investable. So you can go to people in your university or people in the research councils or people, and just, we're putting together this thing, which, I think for only £5 million we could get this done. What you're doing is you're giving them an indication that if they ever want to go in that area, you would apply. You're investable. You've got a group of people across universities. You know what you're doing. You've got some mission, stuff like that. So leading upwards is really about trying to influence upwards and show that there's an option here to invest in this kind of research, or this kind of activity, or this kind of development, this kind of interface, or whatever it is. Okay. And of course, it's pretty thankless because a lot of the things you suggest, don't come off. But soon you'll get quite good at qualifying yourselves. So we're not asking people about leadership. I want them to talk about leading down, leading sideways, and leading up in their own language. And then they'll say, but of course, I need to develop the skills to lead sideways. And that's difficult for us because we haven't got any personal skills. We're all on the spectrum. See what you're looking at here. What you're looking at here is a very well developed interface. Right? Inside. So you're going to need some skills, and you should have a plan to acquire some of those professional skills and some of those leadership skills. There's a good list of leadership skills in my gift to you. Those are all the words I wanted to say today, but I haven't got time to say today. So leadership's super important because it's become important that we need leaders of the future in our programs, in our thematic programs, in our activities, and things like that. And that requires attention. Do not answer a leadership question with more technology and science. It infuriates a panel. And I mean, they will stop you and throw you out if they're any good. I would just stop it. I'd say, no, I've asked you a question about leadership. You're done. That's it. Time. Right. Because you haven't understood why we're here. Right. For those of you at Oxford, we now have a little piece of paper written by 3 of us, which contains comments for fellowship applicants that we're sick and tired of saying in dummy runs. So we've written it all down. And you can get it from research support people. Okay, here's one that we're going to enjoy just to finish up. It's called strategy. Right. What is a strategy? So, research strategy or say a company strategy. What is strategy? Do you know what strategy is?
Yeah, sir.
Right.
Inside joke.
All right, okay.
It's research.
Okay. What is a strategy? Anybody?
Roadmap.
Sorry?
A roadmap.
A roadmap. Yeah, it could be. It does result in a roadmap, but it's actually got a bit more structure than that. Okay, I'm going to tell you. When you've heard this and agreed with me, there's a great book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Robert Brummer. This is a life-changing book. There are a few life-changing books to read. One is Canon, Thinking Fast and Slow. One is Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Brummer. Another one I always think is E.T. James, Probability, The Logic of Science. That's 800 pages, so buy the book, don't download it, print it out. Cambridge University Press asked me to say. Okay. Now it's three things, strategy. It's three things. Never forget this, right? Because we can have fun with it. Right? A strategy is, first of all, a diagnosis, right? And that's called a response to the question of what is going on, by which I mean generally. What's going on? Post-Brexit, Britain wants to be a leader in AI. Prime Minister said so. Why is it important post-Brexit? Because of diplomacy through science, because of, all sorts of things. What's going on? EU research funding could dry up. What else is going on? Universities' business models are busts. Some of them will be disappearing. What else is going on? Okay, there's a load of stuff going on. So first of all, there's the diagnosis. What is going on? Internally and externally. Right? The second part of a strategy is your policy, which is how you're going to succeed in that diagnosis. Our policy is to become the best UK-based fundamentals of AI hub in Britain. And we're going to do that by investing in children, or whatever our policy is. We're going to do that by star recruitment. We're going to do that by, some other thing. These are our mechanisms. We're going to do that by having a party every Friday. That's our mechanism, how we will show people how excellent we are. Whatever our policy is, right? So there has to be policy, which is what you want to do within the diagnosis. The third thing are tactics, which are a bit like your roadmap, sir. They are tactics that you will enact, which will achieve the policy within the diagnosis. Now, three things: diagnosis, policy, tactics. Some of those could be what's called proximate goals, which aren't quite the full goal of the policy, but get you halfway there. Google proximate goals, you can find some great stories. That's what a strategy is. So now I want you to compare that definition, because we love definitions, with your university's own research strategy. Just Google it tonight before the second drink. Just Google it. And you'll see that university strategies aren't strategies at all. They're sort of lists of things that they're currently doing or hope will happen. A bit of boasting. And they also try to include everything and spread the love. Right? We mustn't leave out arts and humanities. We mustn't do that. To spread the love. Right? Just laugh at it. I was laughing at the University of Oxford's research strategy. This is the strategy. When the next speaker popped up and said, we just had our research strategy commended by HEFQ for being a model. He thought, blimey, what were the other universities research? So I went to have a look at Southampton's. Anybody here from Southampton? Yes, I went to have a look at Southampton's research strategy. And that was pretty much like ours. Sort of blooded everybody, and mentioned everybody, name-checked everybody, like the cast of Coronation Street. Right? Oh yeah, we're doing this, so we're also doing this, we're also doing this. And you thought, well, to what end are you also doing these things? Right? Because they hadn't told me what their aim or their policy was. They hadn't told me what diagnosis they had. We tried to have a strategy group in maths once, and here, in this department, and nobody could really understand the diagnosis question. We haven't got to where we are today by, being short-term, timely, and things like this. We were excellent. We invented the equal sign in 1557. You know that. Right? So you can have a lot of fun with this because it reminds us that even sensible companies and sensible universities actually have a great deal of trouble with strategy. It's a bit of a totem pole. And maths departments and computer science departments need strategies because otherwise the people further up the food chain in the university will impose their strategies on those departments. And we've got nothing to push against. Okay. It's not quite true in Oxford because they don't know. They ignore other universities. You know, the dean might do something. You know, I remember talking to people in Strathclyde who were kind enough to give me a degree, honorary degree, and I was there and they were getting cuts in the maths department as a result of some huge losses we'd made in the chemistry department because they're all in science. I thought, well, why is that right? We've got to spread out the loss. Hiring freeze, nobody gets in, you know, and that applies to maths as well. But the good news was they were going to employ some interdisciplinary fellows and spread them out. You know, with only half the money saved. You know, you thought, well, this is a recipe for disaster for something that was a lovely department. Why are they doing this? I rang up the Vice Chancellor. I said, you know, Jim, this isn't a strategy. He was like, no, but we have to do this because we're looking at a big black hole. I said, yeah, but, you know, the maths is the roadmap that gets you out of the black hole. Don't cut that off. Think about strategy because you'll find that your universities have strategies. You'll find that the research councils who fund our research have strategies. You'll find many of our companies have strategies. They're sometimes a little bit opaque and hidden, rather like AI. The workings are hidden. Okay, but actual fact, it's good to think about that because it's a little topic that you can enjoy. And knowing what a strategy is allows you to sit at the strategic end of the table. So, what do I mean by that? If you're in a meeting and there's an argument going on, and somebody gets up and says, oh, we've got this terrible problem with so-and-so, 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 and they invite everybody in the meeting to address that problem, then it's much better to think to yourself, this is going to happen lots of times in lots of different ways. We need a strategy. It's going to happen because, and that's the diagnosis, because money's tight, because shirts are cheap, because whatever it is. You know. And then think, well, what's the best policy that we can address, not just to this case, but all the others? Honestly, your friends will love you for doing this. We're not just going to solve one problem, we're going to solve the general set of problems by proposing a policy. We say, look, I propose a policy where we hire women. That's going to be, we're down on all our reading art metrics. They'll go around the table and they'll go, I agree with Pete. Next person, I agree with Pete. Because you just offered them a policy that would get them out of order. We never want to have these terrible problems. We don't want these problems. Or we'd be letting ourselves down. We need to have a proactive policy. And then as part of that policy, there'll have to be some tactics. Where are we going to find these particular type of employees? How are we going to reach out to them? How do we make our work in here attractive to those types of employees? A whole load of things that would have to be done in order to make that successful. Okay. So when people present single problems, try to generalise it and think, well, what would a strategy to exploit this opportunity or to... So that's a bit of fun you can all have when you're dealing with anybody in university or anybody in funders in particular, because they're creatures of strategy. And you know, the biggest detriment to research funding, particularly for all of us, is short-termism. And we're increasingly seeing more and more short-termism. That means that money, research money, gets hypothecated around issues at the moment. Now, we're the sort of beneficiaries of that because AI post-election summit and things like that is certainly an issue at the moment. And so we would want to take a world lead, not just in the, you know, the details, the fine details, but in actually owning some of the forests and the landscape as well. And that's very, very important for the UK to have that as part of its national strategy. Not just the doers, but the thinkers and the visionaries. Right. And if any of you can become thinkers and visionaries, that's a great place to be. Right. We're almost done. Has anybody got any questions about networking or professional skills beyond networking, brackets, leadership and strategy? Question mark. It's lunchtime, everybody. Thank you very much.